The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Windsor Castle as Sergeant Marcus Thompson adjusted his earpiece for the third time in 10 minutes. 22 years of Royal Protection Service had taught him to trust his instincts, and today something felt different. The usual routine of Princess Charlotte's morning activities seemed ordinary enough on the surface, but the subtle changes in staff behavior and the unusual number of vehicles coming and going had put him on high alert. Charlotte, now 16 and displaying the confident bearing that came naturally to the Wales children, was scheduled for what appeared to be a simple outing to a local charity event. Her protection detail had been briefed on the standard route, the usual security measures, and the expected timeline. Yet Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that important information was being withheld. From the security team, the princess emerged from the castle's main entrance precisely at 10:30. Her bright smile and animated conversation with her lady-in-waiting masking what Marcus had learned to recognize as teenage determination. Charlotte had inherited her mother's grace and her father's stubborn streak, a combination that occasionally presented challenges for her. Protection officers, as they approached the designated vehicle area, Marcus noticed an unfamiliar black Range Rover parked alongside the official royal convoy. The license plates were standard civilian issue, not the specialized markings used for royal family transport. His training kicked in immediately, cataloging every detail about the unexpected vehicle while maintaining his professional composure. The driver emerged as they approached, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son from her first marriage, stepped out with the casual confidence of someone completely comfortable in royal circles. At 48, Tom had largely stayed out of the public eye compared to other royal family connections, preferring his career as a food writer and critic to the spotlight that followed his stepfather's family. What concerned Marcus wasn't Tom's presence itself, but the complete absence of any communication about this arrangement through official channels. Royal protection protocols required advance notice of any changes to transportation arrangements, particularly when they involved family members who didn't typically participate in official duties. Charlotte's face lit up when she saw Tom, suggesting this meeting wasn't unexpected from her perspective. The easy familiarity between them indicated previous interactions, though Marcus couldn't recall any recent intelligence briefings mentioning a developing relationship between Charlotte and her step-uncle, Uncle Tom. Charlotte called out, using the informal family address that had become natural since her grandfather's marriage to Camilla. "I was hoping you'd be able to make it." Tom's warm smile and genuine affection for Charlotte were evident as he opened the passenger door for her. "Wouldn't miss it, Charlotte. Your grandmother specifically asked me to handle the transportation today." The mention of Camilla's involvement added another layer of complexity to the situation. Marcus knew that the Queen Consort maintained her own network of trusted individuals for various personal matters, but using her son for royal transportation duties crossed into territory that required security clearance. Marcus stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his radio. "Excuse me, sir. I wasn't briefed on any changes to the transportation arrangements for today." Tom turned toward the protection officer with understanding in his eyes. "I apologize for the confusion, Sergeant Thompson. This was arranged quite last minute through private family channels. Her Majesty thought it might be beneficial for Charlotte to have a more informal escort for today's engagement." The explanation was plausible, but it violated several fundamental protocols that Marcus had spent his career enforcing. Royal family members, particularly those in direct line of succession, didn't simply change transportation arrangements without proper security vetting and communication. Charlotte, sensing the tension, looked between her protection officer and Tom with growing concern. "Is there a problem?" "Tom's been driving me to events before." This was news to Marcus, who prided himself on maintaining comprehensive awareness of the princess's activities and associations. If Charlotte had been transported by Tom Parker Bowles on previous occasions without proper security protocol, it represented a significant breach that needed immediate attention. "Princess, I need to verify this arrangement with the main security office before we can proceed," Marcus said, already reaching for his secure communication device. Tom's expression remained pleasant, but Marcus caught a slight tightening around his eyes that suggested frustration with the delay. "Of course, Sergeant. I understand you're just doing your job. Perhaps you could expedite the verification. We're on a fairly tight schedule." As Marcus began the verification process, his experienced eye continued to assess the situation. Tom's vehicle, while expensive and well-maintained, lacked the specialized security features standard in royal transport. The windows weren't bulletproof. The chassis showed no signs of armoring. And the communication equipment necessary for coordinated protection was completely absent. The radio crackled as Marcus contacted the main security coordination center. The response he received only deepened his concerns. No authorization had been logged for alternative transportation arrangements, and no one in the immediate chain of command had been informed of Tom Parker Bowles' involvement in the day's activities. Charlotte shifted impatiently beside him. Clearly eager to begin what she obviously viewed as an exciting departure from routine, her enthusiasm for the arrangement was evident, but it only heightened Marcus's protective instincts. 16-year-old royals, regardless of their intelligence and training, couldn't always see the security implications of seemingly innocent changes to established procedures. The morning air carried the sounds of normal castle operations, but Marcus found himself hyper-aware of every detail in his environment. 2 groundskeepers working near the vehicle area, a maintenance van parked slightly closer than usual to the main drive, and a news photographer with telephoto lens positioned just outside. The castle gates all registered as potential concerns in his heightened state of alertness. Tom checked his watch with the casual gesture of someone accustomed to keeping schedules, but Marcus noticed the subtle signs of growing impatience. The food writer's usual easy demeanor was beginning to show slight cracks, suggesting that this transportation arrangement carried more weight than a simple family favor. As Marcus waited for additional clarification from security headquarters, he realized that this moment represented exactly the kind of situation his training had prepared him for. Routine could be dangerous when it masked irregular activities, and even family relationships within the royal circle required the same. Scrutiny applied to any other potential security consideration. The next few minutes would determine whether this was simply an innocent family arrangement poorly communicated through official channels, or something more complex that required immediate intervention to ensure Charlotte's safety. The secure communication device in Marcus's hand buzzed with an incoming priority message from Colonel Harrison, head of Royal Protection Services. The response was swift and unambiguous. No authorization existed for Princess Charlotte to travel with Tom Parker Bowles. An immediate clarification was required before any departure could be approved. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders as he processed the implications. 22 years of protecting the royal family had taught him that even well-intentioned deviations from protocol could create vulnerabilities that others might exploit. The princess's safety wasn't just about physical protection. It encompassed reputation, family dynamics, and the careful balance of public perception that surrounded every royal activity, Marcus said, his voice maintaining the respectful but firm tone that had served him well throughout his career. "I need to ask you to wait while we resolve this transportation matter." Charlotte's expression shifted from enthusiasm to frustration, her teenage impatience becoming more evident. "Sergeant Thompson, I really don't understand what the big deal is. Tom is family, and this arrangement was made with full knowledge of my grandmother." The mention of Camilla's involvement complicated the situation further. As queen consort, Camilla held significant influence within the family structure, but her authority over security protocols for other family members remained limited by established procedures and chain of command considerations. Tom stepped closer to the conversation, his demeanor remaining diplomatic despite the obvious delay. "Perhaps I could speak with Colonel Harrison directly? I have his contact information, and I'm sure this confusion can be cleared up quickly." Marcus appreciated Tom's cooperative approach, but the offer to contact the security chief directly raised additional questions. Most civilians, even those connected to the royal family, didn't possess direct communication access to the highest levels of royal protection services. Tom's casual mention of having Colonel Harrison's contact information suggested a level of integration with security operations that hadn't been reflected in Marcus's briefings. The sound of approaching footsteps drew their attention toward the castle entrance, where Lady Susan Whitmore, Charlotte's private secretary, appeared with a folder of documents and an expression of barely concealed anxiety. Her presence indicated that someone else had become aware of the transportation irregularity and was moving to address it. "Sergeant Thompson," Lady Susan called as she approached. "I've been trying to reach you. There seems to have been some miscommunication regarding today's arrangements." Marcus turned his attention to the private secretary while maintaining awareness of Charlotte and Tom's positions. "Lady Susan, I'm currently trying to verify authorization for alternative transportation arrangements that weren't communicated through official channels." Lady Susan's glance toward Tom carried undertones that Marcus couldn't immediately interpret, but her body language suggested familiarity with whatever situation was developing. "The arrangement was made at a very high level, Sergeant. I have documentation here that should clarify the authorization." The folder she carried appeared to contain official correspondence, but Marcus's experience had taught him to verify everything independently, regardless of the apparent authority behind any documentation. Royal protection couldn't operate on assumptions or informal arrangements. Even when they involved family members, Charlotte moved closer to Tom's vehicle, her body language indicating growing determination to proceed with the planned departure. "I really don't see why this has to be so complicated. We're just going to a charity event, and Tom knows the area better than most drivers." Her comment about Tom's familiarity with the destination was another detail that hadn't appeared in Marcus's briefing materials. If Tom Parker Bowles had specific knowledge about the charity event location, it suggested a level of advanced planning that extended beyond a simple last-minute transportation favor. Marcus's radio crackled again with an update from the Security Coordination Center. Colonel Harrison was requesting immediate details about the situation and had dispatched additional personnel to Windsor Castle to assess the circumstances. The escalation indicated that the security leadership was taking the protocol breach seriously. Tom checked his phone and frowned slightly at whatever message he'd received. "Charlotte, we really should be going soon if we want to maintain the schedule. The event organizers are expecting us at a specific time." The casual use of "us" in Tom's statement caught Marcus's attention immediately. The security briefing had described Charlotte's attendance at the charity event as a solo engagement with standard protection detail support. The implication that Tom would be participating in the event itself represented another significant deviation from the planned arrangements. Lady Susan opened her folder and removed a document that appeared to bear official letterhead. "Sergeant, this authorization was signed yesterday evening. I apologize that it wasn't transmitted through normal security channels, but the arrangement was finalized quite late." Marcus accepted the document while maintaining his professional skepticism. Even authentic authorizations required verification through proper channels, particularly when they involved changes to established security procedures. The document would need to be confirmed independently before he could approve. Charlotte's departure, as he examined the paperwork, Marcus noticed several details that increased his concerns. The authorization bore Camillas' signature. The document format didn't match the standard templates used for royal family transportation approvals. The language was less formal than typical official correspondence, and the timing of the signature raised questions about the approval process. Charlotte's impatience reached a new level as she moved toward Tom's vehicle door handle. "I'm 16 years old, not 6. This is ridiculous." Her movement triggered Marcus's protective instincts immediately, regardless of the authorization questions. His primary responsibility remained Charlotte's safety, and that meant maintaining control over her transportation arrangements until all security concerns were resolved. "Princess, I need to ask you to step back from the vehicle until we complete the verification process," Marcus said, his hand moving to his radio to call for backup support. Tom's expression shifted slightly at Marcus's more assertive tone, but he maintained his diplomatic approach. "Sergeant Thompson, I understand your caution, but we're creating unnecessary tension here. Perhaps we could compromise by having you accompany us in the vehicle to ensure proper security protocols." The suggestion was reasonable on the surface, but it would require Marcus to abandon established procedures and trust his principles. Safety to an unvetted civilian vehicle. His training and experience made such a compromise unacceptable. Regardless of the family connections involved, the approaching sound of additional vehicles indicated that Colonel Harrison's dispatched personnel were arriving at Windsor Castle. The situation was escalating beyond a simple transportation irregularity and moving into territory that would require careful handling to avoid creating a diplomatic incident within the royal family itself. Marcus realized that the next few minutes would test not only his security protocols, but also his ability to balance competing loyalties and manage a complex situation that involved family dynamics, established procedures, and a teenage princess's growing determination to assert her independence. 3 black SUVs approached the castle grounds with the unmistakable precision of official royal protection vehicles. Marcus recognized the lead vehicle as Colonel Harrison's personal transport, indicating that the security chief was taking personal command of the situation. The arrival of additional personnel would either resolve the SUV transportation irregularity quickly or escalate it into a more serious security review. Charlotte watched the approaching vehicles with growing frustration, her teenage indignation becoming more pronounced with each passing minute. This is absolutely ridiculous. Grandfather never had to deal with this. The level of paranoia when he wanted to go somewhere. Reference to King Charles revealed a deeper frustration with the constraints of royal life that Marcus had observed developing in many young royals. The desire for normalcy often clashed with security requirements, creating tensions that required careful management by protection officers who understood both the emotional and practical challenges involved. Tom remained beside his vehicle, his casual confidence beginning to show signs of strain as the situation developed beyond a simple transportation request. He glanced at his phone again, suggesting that he was receiving updates or instructions from someone else involved in the arrangement. Colonel Harrison emerged from the lead SUV with the bearing of a military officer accustomed to command authority. At 55, he had overseen royal protection during some of the most challenging periods in recent royal history, and his presence indicated that this situation was being treated with maximum seriousness. Sergeant Thompson, Colonel Harrison called as he approached, his voice carrying the crisp authority that had earned him respect throughout the royal protection services. Brief me on the current situation. Marcus straightened to attention and provided a concise summary of the transportation irregularity, the unauthorized vehicle, and the questions surrounding the documentation provided by Lady Susan. His report was thorough but diplomatic, acknowledging the family connections while emphasizing the protocol violations. Colonel Harrison listened without interruption, his experienced eye taking in every detail of the scene. His gaze lingered on Tom Parker Bowles, suggesting that he was evaluating more than just the immediate transportation request. Mr. Parker Bowles, the colonel said, turning his attention to Tom, I understand you were attempting to provide transportation for Princess Charlotte today. Tom stepped forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to dealing with authority figures. Colonel Harrison, good to see you again. Yes, this arrangement was made at Camillas' request. She felt that a more informal approach might be beneficial for today's charity engagement. The casual familiarity between Tom and Colonel Harrison surprised Marcus, who hadn't been aware of any previous interactions between Camilla's son and the head of royal protection. The relationship suggested a level of integration that hadn't been reflected in standard briefing materials. Charlotte moved closer to the conversation, clearly determined to advocate for her preferred transportation arrangement. Colonel Harrison, I really don't understand why everyone is making such a big deal about this. Tom is practically family, and we're just going to a charity event. Colonel's expression remained neutral as he addressed the princess with the respectful firmness that royal protection officers developed through years of experience. Princess Charlotte, the concern isn't about Mr. Parker Bowles personally, but about following established security protocols that exist for your protection. Lady Susan stepped forward with her documentation, clearly hoping to resolve the situation through official channels. Colonel, I have the authorization that was signed yesterday evening. Perhaps this will clarify the arrangement. Colonel Harrison accepted the document and examined it with the thorough attention that his position required. Marcus watched his superior's expression for any indication of how the authorization would be received. Knowing that the colonel's decision would determine how the situation would be resolved after several minutes of careful review, Colonel Harrison looked up with an expression that suggested the documentation had raised as many questions as it had answered. "Lady Susan, this authorization appears to be authentic, but it wasn't processed through the proper security review channels." Tom checked his phone again, his growing impatience becoming more evident despite his efforts to maintain diplomatic composure. "Colonel, with respect, we're operating on a fairly tight schedule. The charity event organizers are expecting us to arrive within a specific time frame." The repeated references to us in Tom's statements continued to concern Marcus, who understood that unauthorized participation in royal engagements could create security vulnerabilities and protocol complications that extended beyond simple transportation issues. Colonel Harrison turned to address the broader situation with the decisive authority that his position required. "Here's how we're going to resolve this. Princess Charlotte will travel to the charity event in an official royal protection vehicle with full security. Is protocol, Mr. Parker Bowles? If your participation in the event has been authorized, you may follow in your personal vehicle with a security escort." Charlotte's expression shifted to one of clear disappointment at the compromise solution. "That defeats the entire purpose of the arrangement. The whole point was to have a more relaxed approach to today's engagement." Her comment revealed information that hadn't been included in the original security briefing. If the transportation arrangement was part of a broader strategy to modify the approach to Charlotte's public engagements, it represented a significant policy change that required careful review and planning. Tom's reaction to the colonel's decision was more measured, but Marcus detected subtle signs of frustration that suggested the compromise solution didn't meet his expectations either. "Colonel Harrison, I appreciate your position, but this arrangement was specifically designed to provide Princess Charlotte with a different kind of experience." The mention of a different kind of experience raised additional questions about the true nature of the planned engagement. Marcus realized that the charity event itself might involve elements that hadn't been communicated through standard briefing channels. Colonel Harrison's radio crackled with an incoming message that he answered with brief, professional responses. The conversation appeared to involve higher-level consultation, suggesting that the situation was being reviewed at the highest levels of royal administration. As the communication concluded, Colonel Harrison's expression had shifted to one of increased seriousness. "There's been a development that requires immediate attention. Princess Charlotte, I need you to remain here while we conduct additional security assessments." The announcement created visible tension among everyone present, with Charlotte's frustration reaching new levels and Tom's casual confidence finally showing clear signs of strain. Marcus realized that what had begun as a simple transportation irregularity was evolving into something that required much more serious security consideration. The charity event, Tom's involvement, and the unauthorized transportation arrangement were apparently connected to a larger situation that the Royal Protection Services were only beginning to understand. Marcus felt his training and instincts aligning as he prepared for whatever developments would emerge from Colonel Harrison's additional security review. The secure communication that Colonel Harrison had received came from intelligence services monitoring potential security threats to the royal family. Marcus watched his superior's expression carefully, recognizing the subtle signs that indicated elevated threat assessment procedures were now in effect. "Mr. Parker Bowles," Colonel Harrison said, his tone shifting to one of formal authority, "I need to ask you some questions about today's planned route and destination." Casual demeanor finally showed clear signs of strain as he realized the situation had moved beyond simple protocol verification. "Of course, Colonel. We were planning to take the A308 directly to the charity location in Maidenhead. It's a straightforward route that I've driven many times." The mention of Maidenhead triggered Marcus's memory of recent intelligence briefings. The area had been flagged for increased surveillance due to reports of suspicious activities near several venues frequented by high-profile individuals. The charity event location itself hadn't been specifically mentioned, but the general area was under enhanced security monitoring. Charlotte stepped closer to the conversation, her concern now overriding her earlier frustration. What kind of questions? Is there something wrong with the charity event? Colonel Harrison maintained his professional composure while addressing her concerns. Princess, we're conducting routine security verification procedures. There's no immediate cause for alarm, but we need to ensure that all arrangements meet current security standards. Lady Susan consulted her documentation again, clearly searching for information that might clarify the developing situation. Colonel, the charity event is being hosted by the Maidenhead Youth Foundation. They've been operating for over 15 years with an excellent reputation. The mention of the specific charity organization prompted Marcus to recall additional details from recent briefings. The Maidenhead Youth Foundation had indeed maintained a sterling reputation, but recent intelligence reports had noted increased interest from various groups in targeting charity events attended by royal family members. Tom's phone buzzed with another message, and his reaction to whatever he read was subtle but noticeable to Marcus's trained observation skills. A slight tightening around his eyes and a momentary pause before responding suggested that the message contained information that complicated his position. "Colonel Harrison," Tom said, his voice maintaining diplomatic control despite the obvious stress. "I should mention that there have been some last-minute changes to today's event program. The organizers wanted to add some additional activities that they thought Princess Charlotte would particularly enjoy. Revelation of program changes that hadn't been communicated through official channels represented another significant protocol violation. Royal family engagements required detailed advance planning and security review of all activities, particularly when they involved modifications to established schedules." Charlotte's eyes lit up with curiosity despite the growing tension. What kind of additional activities? The original program seemed fairly standard for this type of event. Her comment revealed that she had been more thoroughly briefed on the event details than the security team had realized. This suggested a level of communication and planning that had bypassed normal coordination channels, raising questions about who was managing information flow around the engagement. "Colonel." Harrison's radio crackled with another priority message, this one requiring a longer conversation conducted in the coded language used for sensitive security communications. Marcus couldn't hear all the details, but the nature of the exchange suggested that external intelligence agencies were now involved in assessing the situation as the communication concluded. Colonel Harrison's expression had shifted to one of heightened concern. "Sergeant Thompson, I need you to escort Princess Charlotte back to the castle immediately. This engagement is being postponed pending further security review." Charlotte's reaction was immediate and forceful. "Absolutely not. I've been looking forward to this event for weeks, and I'm not going to let security paranoia ruin it." Her determination to proceed with the engagement despite security concerns reflected the independent streak that made her both admirable and challenging to protect. Marcus recognized the delicate balance required to manage her strong will while ensuring her safety. Tom stepped forward, his diplomatic mask finally slipping to reveal genuine concern. "Colonel, perhaps I should explain some additional context about today's arrangements. There are aspects of this situation that I haven't fully disclosed." The admission that Tom had been withholding information transformed the situation. From a protocol irregularity into a potential security breach, Marcus felt his hand instinctively move closer to his radio as his training kicked in with heightened alertness. "Mr. Parker Bowles," Colonel Harrison said, his voice carrying unmistakable authority, "I need you to provide complete disclosure immediately. Any additional information you've been withholding could be critical to Princess Charlotte's safety." Tom glanced around the group before speaking, his hesitation suggesting that his revelation would significantly complicate the situation. "The charity event today isn't exactly what it appears to be. It's actually a cover for a more private meeting that Camilla arranged." The admission hit the group like a thunderbolt, with Charlotte's expression shifting from frustration to shock and Colonel Harrison's professional composure hardening into barely controlled anger. Marcus realized that they were dealing with something far more complex than an unauthorized transportation arrangement. "What kind of private meeting?" Charlotte asked, her voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and growing concern about the deception that had been orchestrated around her. Tom's reluctance to continue was evident, but Colonel Harrison's expectant silence made it clear that complete disclosure was now mandatory. Camilla wanted to arrange for you to meet with some representatives from various youth organizations. She felt that informal discussions might be more productive than official engagements. The explanation revealed a sophisticated deception that involved using a legitimate charity event as cover for unauthorized meetings with unknown individuals. Marcus understood immediately why the intelligence services had flagged this situation for an investigation. Colonel Harrison's radio crackled, again with urgent communications that he answered with, increasingly terse responses. The developing situation was clearly escalating through multiple levels of security and intelligence oversight. "Princess Charlotte," Colonel Harrison said, turning to address her with grave seriousness, "you will return to the castle immediately. This situation requires comprehensive investigation before any public engagement can be considered." Charlotte's teenage defiance finally gave way to recognition of the serious nature of what was developing around her. "Tom, what have you gotten me involved in?" Tom's expression showed genuine remorse as he realized the consequences of the deception he had participated in. "Charlotte, I genuinely believed this was a harmless arrangement to give you more freedom and informal interaction opportunities." Marcus stepped closer to Charlotte, his protective instincts fully engaged as he prepared to escort her to safety, while Colonel Harrison continued managing the broader security implications of what they had discovered. The revelation that Camilla had orchestrated a covert meeting under the guise of a charity event sent shockwaves through the established security protocols that governed royal family activities. Marcus understood immediately that they were dealing with a situation that could have far-reaching implications for royal security procedures and internal family dynamics. Colonel Harrison coordinated rapidly with multiple security agencies while maintaining visual contact with all parties involved in the developing crisis. His radio communications had shifted to the highest classification levels, indicating that intelligence services were treating the situation as a potential threat to national security interests. Charlotte stood frozen beside Tom's vehicle, her teenage confidence completely shattered by the realization that she had been manipulated into participating in unauthorized activities that could compromise her safety and position within the royal family. "Structure," Sergeant Thompson, Colonel Harrison commanded. "Establish a secure perimeter immediately. No one enters or leaves this area without my direct authorization." Marcus responded with the swift efficiency that 22 years of Royal Protection Service had ingrained in his reflexes. He coordinated with the additional security personnel who had arrived with Colonel Harrison to create a controlled environment that would prevent any external interference while the situation was assessed and resolved. Tom Parker Bowles found himself at the center of a security investigation that had escalated far beyond his initial expectations. His casual confidence had evaporated completely as he realized that his participation in Camilla's scheme had potentially exposed Princess Charlotte to unknown risks. "Colonel Harrison," Tom said, his voice now showing clear signs of stress and regret, "I need to emphasize that I genuinely believed this arrangement was designed to benefit Charlotte. Camilla presented it as an opportunity for her to engage with youth organizations in a more relaxed setting. The mention of youth organizations in connection with covert meeting arrangements triggered additional security concerns for Marcus. Intelligence briefings had recently highlighted increased attempts by various groups to gain unauthorized access to royal family members through seemingly legitimate charitable and educational organizations. Lady Susan consulted her documentation with growing anxiety, realizing that her role in facilitating the unauthorized arrangement had potentially compromised her position and created serious legal liability. "Colonel, I want to emphasize that all documentation I provided was presented to me as legitimate authorization from the Queen Consort." Colonel Harrison's expression remained professionally neutral despite the gravity of the developing situation. His experience with royal family dynamics had taught him to navigate carefully between security requirements and the complex personal relationships that influenced royal decision-making. Processes. Charlotte finally found her voice after several minutes of shocked silence. I want to know exactly what kind of meeting Camilla was arranging and why. She felt it necessary to deceive everyone involved. Her demand for transparency reflected the mature judgment that had impressed her protection officers throughout her teenage years, but it also highlighted the delicate position she now occupied between family loyalty and security requirements. Marcus's secure communication device buzzed with an urgent message from intelligence services that had been monitoring the planned charity event location. The information he received confirmed his worst fears about the true nature of the arrangement that Camilla had orchestrated. Colonel Marcus reported quietly, "Intelligence services have identified several individuals with questionable backgrounds who were scheduled to attend today's event. The meeting appears to have been designed to provide them with direct access to Princess Charlotte." The intelligence revelation transformed the situation from a protocol violation into a confirmed security threat that required immediate investigation at the highest levels of government in royal administration. Colonel Harrison understood that the implications extended far beyond the immediate safety concerns. Tom's reaction to the intelligence disclosure was one of genuine shock and horror as he realized the true nature of what he had been manipulated into facilitating. "I had no knowledge of any questionable individuals being involved." Camilla presented this as a routine engagement with established youth organizations. Charlotte's expression shifted from confusion to anger as she processed the full implications of how she had been deceived and potentially endangered. "Someone used me as bait without my knowledge or consent." Her assessment was accurate and reflected the serious breach of trust that had occurred at multiple levels within the royal family structure. Marcus recognized that the emotional impact on Charlotte would require careful management alongside the immediate security concerns. Colonel Harrison received another urgent communication that required him to step away from the group for a private conversation. The nature of his responses suggested that senior government officials were now directly involved in managing the crisis that had developed around Charlotte's planned engagement. Asked the colonel returned to the group. His expression carried the weight of decisions that had been made at the highest levels of authority. "This situation is now under investigation by multiple agencies. Princess Charlotte, you'll be escorted to a secure location within the castle while we conduct comprehensive security assessments." Charlotte accepted the restriction, with the mature understanding that the situation had moved far beyond teenage rebellion against security protocols. What happens to Tom? He was clearly manipulated as much as I was. Her concern for Tom, despite the deception, reflected the compassion that made her popular with both public and protection officers. But it also highlighted the complex family dynamics that had been exploited in creating this security breach. Tom faced the reality that his participation in the scheme, regardless of his intentions, had potentially exposed him to serious legal consequences and permanent damage to his relationship with the royal family. "Charlotte, I want you to know that I would never have participated if I had understood the true nature of what was being arranged." Marcus prepared to escort Charlotte to safety, while Colonel Harrison continued coordinating with the multiple agencies now involved in investigating the security breach. The situation had evolved from a simple transportation irregularity into a complex crisis that would require months of investigation and potentially significant changes to royal security procedures. The unauthorized meeting that Camilla had attempted to arrange represented a fundamental violation of the trust and security protocols that protected the royal family from exploitation by individuals and organizations with questionable motives and potentially dangerous intentions. The secure wing of Windsor Castle had been transformed into an operational command center as multiple intelligence agencies coordinated their response to what was now classified as a serious security breach involving the royal family. maintained his protective position outside Charlotte's secured quarters, while senior officials conducted interviews and reviewed evidence related to the unauthorized meeting arrangement. 3 hours after the initial incident, the full scope of Camillas' deception began to emerge through comprehensive intelligence analysis. The supposed youth organization representatives who were scheduled to meet Charlotte included individuals with connections to foreign interest groups and political organizations that posed potential threats to British national security. Colonel Harrison briefed Marcus on the developing intelligence picture during a brief break in the investigation procedures. Sergeant, the preliminary evidence suggests that the Queen Consort was approached by individuals who convinced her that arranging informal meetings would benefit Princess Charlotte's future role and public engagement capabilities. The intelligence assessment painted a disturbing picture of sophisticated manipulation that had exploited Camillas' genuine desire to help Charlotte develop her public role while simultaneously creating vulnerabilities that could have been catastrophically exploited by hostile interests. Charlotte remained in her secured quarters with Lady Susan, who was providing emotional support, while also facing her own investigation for her role in facilitating the unauthorized arrangement. The princess's maturity in handling the crisis had impressed everyone involved in the security response, but the psychological impact of learning she had been targeted for manipulation was clearly significant. Tom Parker Bowles faced extensive questioning by intelligence officers who were working to determine whether his participation in the scheme had been entirely innocent, or whether he had been aware of any aspects of the manipulation that had targeted his stepfamily members. Marcus received updates on the investigation through his secure communication device. Learning that the charity event itself was legitimate but had been infiltrated by individuals who had convinced Camilla to arrange the private meeting under false pretenses, the morning's events had highlighted fundamental weaknesses in the communication systems that were supposed to prevent unauthorized access to royal family members, particularly the younger royals who were seen as potentially more vulnerable to social engineering and manipulation tactics. King Charles arrived at Windsor Castle in his official vehicle, accompanied by a full security escort that indicated the seriousness with which Buckingham Palace was treating the security breach. His private meeting with Colonel Harrison lasted over an hour and resulted in immediate changes to security protocols for all royal family members. Princess Catherine and Prince William were briefed on the situation by secure communication, with their immediate response being to request enhanced security review of all planned engagements for their children. The incident had shaken confidence in the existing protective procedures and highlighted the need for more comprehensive oversight. Marcus remained at his post throughout the extended crisis response, his 22 years of experience helping him maintain professional composure despite the gravity of the situation that developed from what initially appeared to be a simple transportation irregularity. The investigation revealed that Camilla had been approached through her charitable interests by individuals who presented themselves as representatives of legitimate youth organizations seeking to create mentorship opportunities for young royals. The sophisticated nature of the deception suggested careful planning and detailed knowledge of royal family dynamics. Charlotte was eventually cleared to leave her secured quarters after comprehensive debriefing sessions with intelligence officers and psychological support specialists. Her first request was to speak with Tom Parker Bowles to ensure that he understood. She didn't hold him responsible for the manipulation they had both experienced. The conversation between Charlotte and Tom was monitored by security personnel, but revealed the genuine remorse Tom felt for his unwitting participation in the scheme, and Charlotte's mature understanding of how they had both been victimized by sophisticated manipulation tactics. Colonel Harrison compiled a comprehensive report on the incident that would result in significant changes to royal protection protocols, particularly regarding the verification procedures for any modifications to planned royal engagements and the communication channels used to authorize such changes. The charity event in Maidenhead was cancelled indefinitely, while intelligence services conducted thorough background investigations of all individuals and organizations that had been involved in planning or promoting the engagement. Marcus's quick recognition of the protocol violations and his immediate escalation of concerns through proper security channels were credited with preventing what could have been a catastrophic security breach with international implications for British royal family safety, and national security interests. Tom Parker Bowles faced a period of restricted access to royal family functions while the investigation continued. Though preliminary evidence suggested that he had been an unwitting participant in the manipulation rather than a willing accomplice to any hostile activities, the incident resulted in enhanced security briefings for all royal family members. Regarding the sophisticated tactics being used by various groups to gain unauthorized access through social engineering and manipulation of charitable and educational organizations, Charlotte's experience provided valuable lessons for other young royals about the constant vigilance required to protect against exploitation while maintaining the public engagement responsibilities that were essential to their constitutional roles. The morning that had begun with what appeared to be a simple transportation request had evolved into a comprehensive security crisis that highlighted both the vulnerabilities and the strengths of the protective systems designed to safeguard the British royal family from threats that were becoming increasingly sophisticated and harder to detect through conventional security procedures. Marcus returned to his regular duties with enhanced awareness of the complex threats facing the royal family and renewed appreciation for the critical importance of maintaining strict adherence to established security protocols, regardless of the apparent legitimacy or family connections of any proposed deviations from approved procedures.